If I forget one ruku' from the prayer and I remember afterwards, what am I supposed to do? This is a question by a brother.
باسمك إلهي عالي الشان يا الواحد الفرد نظرة منك تغنيني.
By the mercy of Allah to His slaves, as one of the beauties of this perfect religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed that His slaves may make up for shortcomings and mistakes that they make in their worship and they cannot avoid completely. And one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for His slaves to make up for shortcomings that may occur in their prayer is what is known as the prostration of forgetfulness, that is sujood sahu, but it is only prescribed to make up for certain things. It does not make up for everything, nor is it prescribed for everything. It should be noted that in the prayer there are three positive categories of things that are supposed to be done in prayer. I'm using positive because there is a side of things that are not allowed to do in prayer. And for the positive things that are supposed to be done, we have what we call the arkan, the pillars of prayer, with which if you do not establish them, then the prayer is not valid. You miss out one of them, the prayer is not valid. Then there is a second category. This is the category of compulsory acts of prayer, and these are acts that are compulsory but not to the degree of being pillars of the prayer. And then we have a third category. This is the category of the Sunnah acts of prayer. And now sujood sahu, the sujood, the prostration of forgetfulness, is only prescribed for the first two categories, the category of the pillars of prayer and the category of the compulsory acts of prayer. An example of the pillars of prayer is a ruku', just like our brother stated in the question. And an example of a compulsory act in prayer is the first tashahhud, that's sitting in the middle of the prayer. That sitting in the middle of the prayer is what is known as the first tashahhud, and it is a compulsory act of prayer. And an example of the sunnah acts of prayer is raising hands as you say Allahu Akbar on the different positions in the Salah. Now, the prostration of forgetfulness is generally prescribed for three reasons. The first reason is doing an extra act on top of those acts, that maybe someone makes an extra ruku'. It is also prescribed for omitting something, maybe if someone skips out something that has to be done inside the prayer. And lastly, someone having doubt, someone being uncertain. Maybe you're supposed to pray 4 rak'ahs and you're not sure. Have you prayed 3 or 4? This is when the prostration of forgetfulness comes in. Now, if someone omits a pillar of Salah, what is required of him is to come up with that pillar that has been omitted. And then he establishes sujood sahu, the prostration of forgetfulness. For example, if someone omitted the ruku', just like our brother stated in the question, what is required of that person is to come up with the ruku' inside the prayer. Once again, you do not say, I have forgotten and that is done. No. If what has been omitted is a pillar of Salah, then it means you have to come up with that pillar, and at the end of your prayer, you come up with the prostration of forgetfulness. And if someone omits a compulsory act of the prayer, maybe if someone forgets and he does not sit at the first tashahhud in between the prayers, then what is required of this person is to come up with sujood sahu at the end of the prayer. This is if he has forgotten a compulsory act from amongst the acts of Salah. Now back to the question of our brother. Our brother is inquisitive that if all that happens, I have missed out a ruku', and then I remember afterwards that for the prayer I prayed previously, I missed out a ruku'. what am I supposed to do? Now, you first analyze what has been omitted from your prayer. If what has been omitted from your prayer is something that is compulsory, then what is required of you is sujood sahw. And Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah states that it doesn't matter how long it has been since you prayed that prayer. If you remember that you omitted a compulsory act from amongst the acts of Salah, you need to come up with sujood sahw. But our brother says he omitted a ruku', and a ruku' is not only a compulsory act of prayer, but it is a pillar of prayer. Then what is required of such a person is, if it is shortly after the prayer, this person is required to come up with a full rak'ah. For example, if it is just after saying salam, after he has completed the prayer and he remembers that he did not make ruku', then what is required of him is to stand up and come up with that rak'ah. But if long periods of time pass by this person and then he remembers maybe 5 hours later, 6 hours later that he missed out a ruku' in the previous prayer, then scholars tell us that he has to repeat the whole prayer. In this case, if long periods of time have passed and a pillar of prayer was omitted, and this person's prayer hangs in balance because this pillar has not yet been fulfilled. So scholars do tell us that this person re-establishes the whole prayer such that he gets the complete rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah knows best.